Welcome to our channel. Today folks, we're diving headfirst into a topic that's more awkward than a family reunion with that one uncle who still tells you've grown jokes. The most hated countries in the world in 2025. Now, before you grab your pitchforks and don't tread on me flags, let's be clear. This isn't about fueling animosity. We're here to dissect the messy, complicated stew of political, cultural, and global tensions that have led to certain countries being viewed less favorably than a plate of lukewarm mayonnaise sandwiches at a picnic. So, buckle up, buttercups, as we unpack the geopolitical baggage that's heavier than a hippo in a hot tub. First up on our delightful world tour of diplomatic disasters, we find ourselves in, let's just say, a country that's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. This nation has managed to capture the world's attention, not with groundbreaking innovations or heartwarming stories, but with a series of blunders that would make even the most seasoned diplomat cringe. Now, we could spend hours dissecting their laundry list of questionable choices, but for the sake of brevity, and because frankly, no one wants to be here longer than a cat in a bath, let's focus on the big ones. These are the policies and actions that have not only raised eyebrows, but have also caused significant ripples across the global stage. First, we have their foreign policy, which can best be described as a bull in a china shop doing the Macarena after downing a case of Red Bull. It's chaotic, unpredictable, and leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. Diplomats around the world are left scratching their heads trying to make sense of the erratic moves. It's aggressive, it's messy, and frankly, it's making everyone nervous. Allies are on edge, adversaries are emboldened, and the general public is left wondering what will happen next. The unpredictability of their actions has created a tense atmosphere that feels like a powder keg ready to explode. They're throwing their weight around like a toddler with a sippy cup full of juice at a wedding, and the international community is starting to eye them with the same apprehension as you would a pigeon walking towards you with a French fry in its beak. It's a mix of curiosity and fear, wondering if and when the next mess will occur. Then there's the whole human rights situation, which is about as pleasant to discuss as a root canal performed by a mime using only a rusty spork. Reports of abuses and crackdowns have surfaced, painting a grim picture of life within the borders of this nation. Let's just say that freedom of speech in this particular nation is about as common as a unicorn riding a unicycle on a tightrope made of dental floss. Citizens are wary of speaking out, knowing that the consequences could be severe. It's theoretically possible, but you're not going to see it happening anytime soon. The government maintains a tight grip on information, ensuring that dissenting voices are quickly silenced. And let's not forget their environmental track record, which is currently on par with a toddler left unsupervised with a box of crayons and a white couch. Their policies have led to widespread environmental degradation with little regard for the long-term consequences. They're burning fossil fuels faster than a pyromaniac at a lighter factory, and their deforestation efforts are making the Amazon rainforest look like it just got a buzz cut from a blind barber. The international community is increasingly alarmed by the environmental havoc being wreaked, and calls for action are growing louder. Next, we find ourselves in a nation known for its technological prowess, its ancient traditions, and its unique blend of the old and the new. This is a place where innovation meets history, and where a cultural aversion to apologizing would make a mule seem downright Canadian in comparison. Now, before you accuse me of being culturally insensitive, which, let's be honest, is like accusing a raccoon of liking trash, let me explain. There's more to this story than meets the eye. This country, despite its many admirable qualities, has a bit of a reputation for being culturally insular. It's a place where tradition holds strong, sometimes at the expense of openness. They're like a perfectly manicured bonsai tree. Beautiful to look at, but try to stick your hand in there and see what happens. The precision and care are admirable, but it can be a bit prickly. They've got a long and storied history filled with rich cultural achievements and significant historical events that have shaped their national identity, and they're fiercely proud of it, which is all well and good until it translates into a reluctance to engage with the rest of the world on anything other than their own terms. This pride can sometimes be a double-edged sword. This cultural resistance to outside influence manifests itself in a number of ways, from social interactions to governmental policies. Take their immigration policies, for example, which are about as welcoming as a porcupine in a bouncy castle. It's a delicate balance between preserving culture and embracing change, or consider their approach to international relations, which often involves a level of passive aggression that would make a British Tea Party look like a WWE SmackDown. It's a subtle dance of diplomacy and restraint. Now I'm not saying they're bad people, not at all. In fact, they can be incredibly warm and hospitable once you get to know them, but their cultural rigidity, combined with a tendency to downplay historical transgressions, we'll get to that later, has left them with an image problem on the global stage. It's a complex issue that requires understanding and nuance. They're like that friend who's always impeccably dressed, incredibly polite, but never seems to fully let you in. There's always a barrier, a sense of distance that can be hard to bridge, and that, my friends, can be more off-putting than a fruitcake-flavored energy drink. It's a unique blend of charm and challenge that defines this fascinating nation. Chapter 3. The Republic of Perpetual Conflict. Our next stop takes us to a region of the world that's been hotter than a jalapeno in a sauna for, well, pretty much ever. This place has seen more heated moments than a summer in the Sahara, and the temperature isn't just about the weather. We're talking about a country that's become synonymous with conflict, a place where peace treaties have a shorter shelf life than a carton of milk left in a kindergarten classroom. It's almost as if the ink on the treaties evaporates before it even dries. Now, it's important to note that this nation's current predicament isn't entirely their own doing. The complexities of their situation are rooted in a tangled web of historical events and external influences. They've been caught in the middle of a geopolitical tug-of-war for decades, with global superpowers using them as pawns in their never-ending game of risk. Imagine being a small piece on a giant chessboard, constantly moved around by unseen hands. It's like they're a pizza delivery guy who keeps getting sent to the same address, only to find a full-blown brawl erupting every single time. No matter how many times they try to deliver peace, chaos is always waiting at the door. But while they might be victims of circumstance to some extent, they're not exactly helping themselves either. Internal strife and public unrest are as common as the sunrise. Their government is more corrupt than a used car salesman with a gambling addiction, with officials often more interested in lining their own pockets than serving the public. And their human rights record makes Genghis Khan look like a kindergarten teacher. The violations are so egregious that even the most hardened dictators would blush. And then there's the whole perpetual state of war thing. Conflict has become a way of life, with generations growing up knowing nothing but the sound of gunfire and the sight of destruction. I mean, I get it, sometimes you just need to blow off some steam, but there's a difference between letting off a little pressure and living in a constant state of explosion. But when your national pastime is more likely to involve an AK-47 than a frisbee, it paints a grim picture of everyday life. The normalization of violence is a tragic reality. You're probably not going to be winning any popularity contests anytime soon. Internationally, their reputation is in tatters, and domestically, trust in leadership is at an all-time low. They're like that friend who always seems to be in the middle of some dramatic breakup, constantly embroiled in turmoil and unable to find stability. Except instead of just unfollowing their ex on Instagram, they're lobbing grenades over a fence. The stakes are higher, the consequences more dire, and the cycle of conflict seems unbreakable. Chapter 4. The United States of Economic Anxiety. Ah, America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and the birthplace of the McRib. A nation built on the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as long as that pursuit involves a 401k, a two-car garage, and the ability to afford health care without having to sell a kidney on the black market. Now I know what you're thinking. John, America is the greatest country in the world. We've got apple pie, baseball, and enough firepower to turn the moon into Swiss cheese. And to that I say, yes, but have you seen our credit card debt? America, my friends, is like that friend who throws legendary parties, but then you find out they're maxing out their credit cards to do it, and they're constantly hitting you up for gas money. We're a nation drowning in debt, addicted to consumption, and increasingly unable to tell the difference between wants and needs. Our economic inequality is wider than the Grand Canyon after a particularly aggressive game of Jenga, and our social safety net is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. We're a nation of haves and have-nots, and the gap between the two is growing faster than a teenager on a diet of Mountain Dew and gummy bears. Chapter 5. The Empire of Unacknowledged Sins. And finally, we arrive at a country with a history so long and complicated, it makes War and Peace look like a children's pop-up book. We're talking about a nation that was once the center of a global empire, a place where the sun literally never set on their dominion. Now they're not quite the global superpower they once were. Time, as they say, waits for no empire, not even one with really good tea. but their legacy of colonialism still casts a long shadow, like a pigeon that's just relieved itself on your freshly washed car. You see, this country, despite all its talk of progress and enlightenment, has a bit of a habit of glossing over its less savory historical chapters. They're like that friend who tells hilarious stories about their wild college days, but conveniently leaves out the part where they accidentally set their dorm room on fire while trying to make microwave nachos. Their refusal to fully acknowledge and atone for their colonial past has left them with a serious case of historical debt, and the rest of the world is starting to send them the bill. It's like they walked out of a restaurant without paying, except instead of a meal, they took spices, tea, and a few million square miles of land. So, there you have it, folks, a whirlwind tour of some of the most disliked nations on planet Earth. Now, before you start drafting angry letters to your local embassy, remember, this isn't about pointing fingers or fueling hatred, it's about understanding the complex web of factors that contribute to global perceptions. If you found this video even remotely informative, or at the very least more entertaining than watching paint dry, do us a favor and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. And be sure to let us know in the comments which countries you think got a raw deal, and which ones deserve to be at the top of the naughty list. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and try not to accidentally start any international incidents.